today about health.
Recording is on.
I wonder what how they perceive things. I guess in my mind, I've got no fucking idea about anything is the problem. So I sort of think anything that comes into my head is entirely speculative to the extreme. I don't feel like I really know anything, but like in my guts, I loathe doctors and modern medicine. I've got no scientific understanding of any of it. But yeah, I feel like myself, I'd rather sort of live according to this, like some mythical idea of people who were in some sort of, I don't know, world of spirits, demons, or just shit happens. And at some point you're just going to drop dead, or at some point you're going to have this giant lump appear on your neck that will get bigger and bigger, and you just learn how to get used to it, or you have a limp or whatever, or you get gangrene, and then they saw your fucking leg off with a primitive object of some sort. But then, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling now. I don't know where I'm going with this. Basically, I'm curious about how people coped with illness and coped with death, and are there ways that we could bring those coping mechanisms and perspectives into our modern life, because it does feel like a form of slavery, being forced to interact with the sort of industrial health system. And due to the existence of that system, we're also kind of denied, in a way, the ability to explore other options for either perceiving our idea of health and dealing with health problems when they come up. So I feel like I can't, I can't explore other possibilities because, I don't know, it's just, it's been so discredited that and basically, to me, everything is discredited at this point. And maybe that brings it back to Uncle Ted. Everything in modern civilization is bullshit. And so if the doctors are bullshit, I don't know whether the homeopaths are bullshit or not, or, whatever, those hand-waving chaps and touching people, bullshit, I don't know. So I don't know if I've said anything remotely coherent there.
Well, at least it's good to know that you don't know. And that's where I am a bit, to admit that you don't know, and there you can build on that. Now there is a way of knowing a bit about medicine, and I was lucky enough because I had a classical education and I learned Latin and Greek, and I used to translate things like when I was in school. So there was some writers who described medicine, but not medicine, but diseases, and how people were talking about them in the Greek time, in the Latin time, and even in the Middle Ages. And there's lots of writers who have written about and who have looked in archives about how people perceived their illness. And there is a very beautiful poetic language and a lot of words that were used in different cultures of Europe anyway to describe different ailments. Even the ones that the pre-doctors used to use very colorful sort of things to explain what people had, and it would coming from spirits to vapors and all sorts of things. There is an immense if you want to go through libraries, and you can find a lot on the history of medicine, and it's very edifying, and it's very interesting to see that it's only in recent time that I repeat that disease has been invented. There was a much less systemic approach to well-being and not well-being before. It was not so classified. It was not so. Now, I don't want to say like, you're not going to save a life, because it's a very, we're on a slippery terrain there where you can say, well, we reject everything, and then we let people die around you because we've got the technology to do this and that, intervene, and antibiotics and things like that. Well, one of the oldest medicine, the two oldest medicines that were used mostly in villages and that people always had at hand was painkillers and things to stop bleeding and to stop wounds due to hunting or war. So there was an immense knowledge of herbs and various tree barks and stuff like that for the broken bones and the wounds. and an awful lot of plants that were used for pain all through the world, from Asia to Europe, and there's an enormous amount of people who've got these plants in books. I have some very interesting books on that. That's for sure. There was always immediate responses to symptoms but that was not put in a logical frame of this disease needs to have this and this and that. It was just, you're in pain, here, take that, you know. So you can also, you remember, I don't know if you remember, but I posted something on Reddit a few weeks ago about sleep, you know, because, for example, I think, I don't know if you remember, but people think that we've always slept the whole night, like, and that we go to bed and, you know, at 10 o'clock and wake up at 8 o'clock. All that is bullshit. It's just only recent, since electricity, since we had lights in the evening, since we started work with regular hours, people for hundreds of years, and that goes back to the antiquity, to 2 or 3,000 years, used to sleep in several, usually 2 phases: first sleep, second sleep, with an awakening time in the middle of the night that is described in various classical writers. And we have pathologized now people who don't sleep the whole night, telling them, oh, you've got a sleeping disorder. No, you don't have a sleeping disorder. You're not going to be in good form to perform your slave work the following day. So you need to take a sleeping tablet or an antidepressant, because you're not normal, like, you're dysfunctional. You see, so the example of sleep it can be extended to an awful lot of other ailments. Let's talk things that are very basic and dirty. Let's take constipation, for example. Like, okay, so you know, you've got. I used to have a load of people who come to see me because they had that problem. Those people were spending most of their day sitting down. Okay, so they were looking for all sorts of remedies to be able to go to the loo. They were eating shite. They were not moving. So doctors were prescribing this and this, and this was more or less working. The chronic constipation would lead to colon problems, then eventually cancer. So you're talking about a lifestyle problem that would, you know, bring on a disease, and then a treatment, and then money, and then maybe at the end of the day a totally fabricated pathology that would be just more simple if people were not living that sort of life. So sleep, digestion, we can go to sex, we can go to everything. We've talked about overshoot, we've talked about overpopulation. Why do people have too many children? Why? Because they've got more. They've got contraception, of course, but that's not the cause of overshoot. It's because the conditions of life, they've got surplus. They're not so they're more sedentary. They've got more. You know, it's not. People have not decided suddenly we're going to have a family of 4 or 5. You know, there's a whole history of people who have gradually, or who had actually sometimes 10 children, and 5 or 6 would die because there was epidemics, or there was not enough food, or things like that. We can't. Everything we talk about in terms of health is related to how we live. We can't dissociate, and that's why the medical world is dangerous, because it's perpetuating a situation and giving remedies just to calm people so that they can continue to work in the plantation. What? I'm reading the comments. Yeah. Sorry, I've been rambling a lot about this because I had so much things to say, but I don't know if I can explain myself very well. I'd like to hear other people on this.
Sophie, I had a question about the pharmaceutical role. I mean, don't you think they recognized that profits came from something that they could produce in an industrial capacity, and that might be a jab or a pill or some therapy, and that motivated the entire industry in the early 20th century to move towards defining health and treating health only in those places where, a single pill could be useful, and maybe even eventually not even useful. Why cure somebody when you can hook them for the rest of their life?
Absolutely, but it's linked to profit. I mean, they jumped on the wagon. The health industry is very profitable. We're afraid of dying. We're afraid of being sick, and so when you go, it's just and this quick fix. Absolutely, absolutely. But you see, it's like medicine has developed and the pharmaceutical has developed so much that it's become extremely dangerous, as well as traffic has developed so much. So it's become extremely dangerous to be a human or a dog. It's the quantity, it's the enormous. I don't have figure. I'm a very bad person to remember figures, and I absolutely know. But I can tell you from because I'm the age I am that when I started working in medicine, it people would go out of the doctor with very few prescriptions. There was very, very few things there. Sometimes there was a necessity for antibiotic, and sometimes there was something for pain and inflammation and stuff like that. Within 20 years, you could multiply by 5, 10 what people carry when they come out of a surgery. So this is not, I mean, it's so profitable. It is just so profitable. I think I'm pushing doors that are already open there. Really, what I'm saying is everybody knows that, everybody knows that. It's just, yeah, it's, I think there has been no progress in medicine, really, in the last 50 years, but there's been an enormous development of drugs. So, that in parallel, like that is absolutely so. People tend to think, oh, because we've discovered a new drug for this and that, we've made progress. No, we have not. Most of the lot of the medications that are made are there to treat problems that have been brought on by either civilization or other treatments or other drugs. Because a lot of people I know come out of hospital with one medication and they have to take 2 or 3 medications to counteract the effects of the drug that they're taking. Now, a long time ago, people used to treat themselves with herbs because there was no way of getting the active ingredient into tablets. So the plant, if you analyze a plant contains the active ingredient, but also an awful lot of other ingredients that have the property of not making side effects disappear, but more or less balancing the effect of the active ingredient. So patients were given the whole plant. Now, a lot of drugs that are coming from plants are they extract the active ingredient, they isolate it, for example, aspirin or Digitalix or whatever active ingredient. So you'd have to take a tablet, but the tablet can cause side effects because you don't have the balancing effect of the whole plant that had been experienced over thousands of years. This is just an example. So what did you mean, Zoo, by pharmaceutical there? When you were intervention, were you more talking about vaccines or were you more talking about drugs?
I guess both. I mean, I just wonder whether early on there is a recognition that some medical practices were profitable and others weren't. And so that incentivized almost narrowing of focus of health to things that could be administered in first industrial produced and then administered sort of on a continuous basis to deal with preferably symptoms and not causes. I mean, I feel like it was the industrialization of the medical system and maybe the regulatory capture that almost forced it on society that has led to where we are.
Yeah. Well, you see, if the health system creates products and targeted where there are going to be a demand that's going to be unlimited, and where is a demand that's unlimited? Fighting against death, because you'll have a constant. You'll always find profits if you're fighting against death. So we're going back into the realm of a society who denies death. And death is not anymore at the center of the relationship between the patient and the doctor. The doctor avoids death, doesn't want to talk about it. Society avoids death, doesn't want to see it. Families don't even deal with death anymore. Most of the time, the dead person is shipped out of the house and, separated immediately from the community. So it's the pharmaceutical have found this fantastic opportunity to develop an unlimited demand of products. More, give me more. I don't want to die. Give me this, give me that, give me this. And I'm saying that not just from the traditional medicine, the Western medicine, but also all sorts of other healers and all sorts of charlatans. It's not just doctors, it's the whole attitude to disease and to death that's creating an industry, because the industry of so-called soft medicine is making billions too. Don't think that everybody is a saint because you're not using a pharmaceutical. There's an awful lot going on in the herbal and homeopathic and all that. I'm not condemning anybody. I'm saying in the middle of all that, there's fantastic people, but it's the whole attitude. We're going back to the denial of death.
That's the key thing, isn't it? The denial of death. It's the central fuck up of all fuck ups, or our unwillingness to. And it's a tricky one to deal with. I mean, one of the meditation things that I did way back was meditating on the sort of image of my rotting corpse, and that of other people as well on the odd occasion, just for shits and giggles. But trying to kind of sort of accept death, I think, would be one of the most helpful sort of self-development things any human beings could do. Just not in the sense of like wanting to die, but just being open to the idea, or not open to the idea, just accepting the fact that we're all this sort of like whatever lumps of meat. We're all going to rot and decay and die, and that's not really that much of a big deal. And the more accepting we are of that, the better. And I mean, I spent some time among Tibetan people, and they seem to be quite chilled out about the fact that you're going to die, and they accept it with a much more kind of stoical, I guess, approach, or Buddhist approach, I suppose, more accurately. But if we just accept the fact, I'm going to fucking die at some point. It might happen tomorrow. It might happen in 20 years. It's not the end of the world. I think a lot of problems would be averted, because I mean, there's that book, Ernest Becker, The Denial of Death, which I'm sure people are familiar with, and I've got it, and I've read the sort of back cover, and I've heard a few people talk about it, and never bothered to read it because I figured, well, I've probably got the gist of it anyway, which is that all the technology and the big buildings that we build, and this bank accounts full of money, and all the stuff we hoard and acquire, and even just our desire sort of get ahead in society and be part of the hierarchy and move up that hierarchy and so on. It's all about fear of death. And if we could kind of come to an accommodation with our inevitable demise as individuals, maybe we'd have been less likely to have destroyed, the ecosystem.
Yeah, but you see, people had a different relationship with death at the time when we were talking about when diseases were looked, or well, not called diseases, but it was more illness. And I think that it's all that is recent. The attitude to death is a recent thing, so it's not forgotten. It's just that it's been replaced by the denial of death, which goes with our civilization. You know, I have all of you know about Hippocrates. You know the Greek founder of medicine, you could say, because we still have to give an oath when we start medicine. That's the Hippocrates oath. And I have a quote of him that's quite interesting to show you how recent diseases are. He says, "You can discover no weight, no form, no calculation to which to refer your judgment of health and sickness. In the medical arts, there exists no certainty except in the physician's senses." So we're talking again about this aspect of our brain that needs to measure and label, and this combined with the denial of death brings us to this monster that I have left the medical world. And I would like to say that this is an extremely powerful tool for the agenda of the managed extinction, because most of the population is under the impression that the doctors and the scientific world carry the truth. And that's what happened during the COVID. People completely went berserk because they were listening to Doctor this and Professor this, and so we're that's where we are. That's where we are. So how do we reclaim our health? What do we do, guys? Extinctionati, SOS.
Hi. I read an article in the New York Times. I don't know, this is years ago, maybe 8, 10 years ago. And they were talking about people who have coughs. And they said that you don't need cough medicine. All you need to do is just drink a lot of fluids and it'll loosen up the phlegm. And it's like you're wasting your money on cough medicine. So.
Oh, that's one of my major rants about the medical thing. At the time, I had a cough that was so bad it gave me a hernia, and I was like in fits. And then the GP, after like 3 different contacts with a GP, who'd all said, "Oh, go and buy some cough medicine." The third GP or whatever, fourth GP that I saw said, "Oh, don't bother with cough medicine. It doesn't work. Just sip some water." And again, I feel like a twit for not having thought just to like try drinking more water or something like this, because I was having these like coughing fits in the middle of the night that made my eyes pop out. But yeah, when the doctors acknowledge the fact, yeah, I don't know, they're so inconsistent. Yeah, it drives me nuts. Yeah, cough medicine doesn't work.
I mean, you don't really need it. You just need to drink a lot of fluids and it'll loosen up all the stuff in your throat.
I think I had a dry cough at the time, actually, but I think that was the same thing. But the one doctor said it doesn't work. And I thought, I wonder, it makes you doubt. I just thought, I wonder if all the other doctors know that it doesn't work, and whether the chemist knows that it doesn't work, and so on. Whether the pharmacist, do they know it doesn't work? Does everyone know it doesn't work, really?
It works for their bank account anyway.
Sophie, I wanted to comment on what you were talking about, how in the last decades medicine has become almost like, a lot of us are programmers, so I liken it to like if this then, or a select statement, case this then. It's like treating the body as very mechanistic, and it also alarms me that I read articles where they're saying that AI is going to take over the roles of doctors, where it will just have an algorithm and it'll know how to treat you. And to me, it's very abhorrent. I would rather have the family physicians of yesterday, as you described, where they're almost, they know you, they know your lifestyle, they know your psyche. It's like they're they know you on a whole basis rather than just seeing one part of your body. But that's probably the trend that's happening right now, is that artificial intelligence will also be used to diagnose us. Will be like cars. This part, something's wrong with this, so it's just, do this if this is the one that's not working. It's kind of horrifying and makes me not want to go to the doctor, like Bob.
You are absolutely right. Actually, these machines already exist. Some of them have been tested about 5-6 years ago in Saudi Arabia. You just literally go in, put your hand on something for a drop of blood, and something takes your blood pressure, and some other thing measures your temperature, and some other things, and you come out with a printout, and that is starting to happen. Yeah, it's not science fiction. It's there, and actually, when I used to go to medical meetings, it evolved more and more into following algorithms that were very close to a program, to an AI thing. You got this patient at this age, this gender, this weight, this parameters. So you had an arrow, you go to there, and then from no, yes, no, and yes, no, and you've got an algorithm for everybody. So you go into the doctor, you're not anymore the person. You fit into an algorithm, and you're going to get at the end of the algorithm a diagnosis and a treatment. So it's turning more and more to be like this.
There's people, though, you'll hear sort of people talking about, oh yeah, when they've got these computer programs now that can diagnose stuff better than any doctor, and they sort of just take it for granted that this will be a really cool development.
Yeah, but it's the idea of diagnosis that I'm kind of contesting and actually criticizing with what I'm saying about health. I mean, the notion of diagnosis itself is a problem.
I think I kind of get that, and that's part of that, but that's just that sort of that also, that's a very anti-civilization sort of view, isn't it? I mean, to be able to register that idea, you have to have quite a bit of doubt about the whole civilization project, don't you, really?
Well, for me, when I'm saying this, it's like I was in a church and I've been thrown out. Like if I say things like that in my family or in front of other ex-colleagues or even patients, I'm considered like a traitor. But I don't care. That's not my problem, because I know what I'm clear in my mind. I see exactly how things are now. But you're a prisoner of this labeling diagnosis, because it has been it's been used, it's been to a certain extent efficient, and there's proof that some great doctors have done great achievements and saved people by using this method. So it's like tech, what Going South was saying earlier. We email and commercial flights. There is in medicine, the use of diagnosis cannot be totally thrown out the window, but there is a generalization that is evil and dangerous and leading us to what we've been talking about.
Can you have the one, can you have the one without the other, though? So don't you have to have the whole machinery of industrial civilization in order to have the diagnosis and the pills? And by having that, it necessarily obliterates the possibility of that sort of, I mean, how would you have like a tier of society, or I'm just thinking about my own sort of attitude of especially sort of think about getting slowly older, and at some point that, you know, things start to go wrong or whatever, and people then seem to get sucked into this relationship with this horrific machine where, you know, as people in the West get older, they start being given these drugs that they have to take regularly, and suddenly it's not like you go to the doctor and get a pill to make something better, but you're suddenly taking these pills because you've got diabetes. You take these diabetes pills, and then you have to take something called statins, and then you have to take this and this and whatever, and this one will help your heart, and this one will help your arthritis, and this one, you know, and you're put on this. I mean, I'm not, because I just refuse to engage with it, but I know lots of people as they get older, you find them taking more and more medicine, and like, you know, my issue of thinking, well, maybe I would just completely just sort of swear myself off modern medicine altogether, and someone wise suggested that, you know, maybe it's better to, you know, pick the bits that you want and leave the rest, but not, you know, refuse engagement altogether. But to me, I'm sort of tempted by the idea that maybe you have to sort of hold it at bay altogether. Otherwise, it's like, you know, when you have that box of chocolates and you're tempted, you know, and you think, oh, I'll just have the one coffee flavored one, and that's the end of that. And then an hour later, there's no more chocolates, and you feel slightly queasy. And you know, how easy is it to pick or choose? And I wonder whether there might develop tiers of society who just really stop using medicine altogether. I mean, in the UK, the government's working on that being the case, just by making the whole health service more and more difficult to access. But yeah, I wonder if there's whether anybody thinks there's any argument to be made for actually going, no, fuck you, modern medicine, I'll take my chances without. Or should we, you know, just take what we want from it and be judicious?
Well, it's a given that an enormous proportion now of pathologies are caused by our civilization. So we can't deny that. I mean, it's the main job of the doctors at the moment is to treat the consequences of the industrial world we live in, and the lifestyle, the corrupt lifestyle we live in, and everything. So if you are immersed in that, you can hardly escape some of those diseases, whether it's caused by food or pollution or the horrendous working conditions or you know. So and I would say something. You say as you get older, you get more sick. That was not true in the past. That is not necessarily, you know, as you get older, your joints getting more painful, you're maybe not as fit, but in a culture that adjusts activity to age, you don't have the same amount of sick old people that you have in our modern world. You know, we can't separate ourselves from our environment, and we can't separate our illnesses from where we live. So yes, you're going to have to make compromises with and use the best that you can with a bit of an educated process and decision process. Use what you can out of this Western medicine, but leave as much as you can too. It's a difficult game now. It's the same with technology. It's the same where, you know, how much do we participate? How much do we use of transport and fuel? And, you know, it's all a very, very tricky thing. We're in a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, diet and exercise are very good, but like what you said, Sophie, about the civilization, there's a lot of chocolate around, and there's a lot of cookies and a lot of sugary stuff, and it's not healthy for you.
I think to go off of this, Derek made a powerful statement, because if you don't know, he mentioned several times he he has Crohn's disease and he had open heart surgery. And he recognizes, that modern medicine, saved his life several times. But he also understands that the living planet is more important. And that's something that gets to me, that all these this, like, on a personal level, we have to make a decision whether we want to use modern medicine, but there's something looming beyond that, right? Which is the living planet. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the very few people who talks intelligently about anything really, but about this subject. I've heard him speaking about that he's got ongoing illnesses and has had serious conditions, and that he recognizes that modern medicine's helped him. But at the same time, he manages to integrate the idea that if we're to do anything about we're not going to now, are we? But if anybody was going to do anything about the state of the planet, then you're going to have to let go of all of that and, just accept. Again, it comes back to just accepting death and suffering and whatever. And also, the sort of what I suspect is just a massive propaganda campaign against non-modern or non-industrial civilization related lifestyles has been pretty relentless in convincing us that everything was terrible before 2,200 years ago. Everything was terrible. Everybody died at 40 or 30 years old, and everybody was writhing around in shit, feeling ill, and all the time, blah blah blah. And every sort of historical age has. I think is that right to say it's like basically propagandized against, and all those people living in mud huts, it's terrible. They have terrible life. And then there was that. What was there? There was a show with a British guy called Bruce Parry, and he went and lived with all these various jungle dwelling, mud hut dwelling type of people. And at that time, I think, which wasn't that long ago, but it made me think, these different lifestyles are possible, even though I'm stuck in an urban setting. And for me personally, it doesn't necessarily appeal. But those people must be, they're okay, right? I mean, the various life forms on this planet are probably okay for a reasonable amount of the time. I don't get the impression that anybody living with less than modern technology is in a state of perpetual angst because of that. But we in civilization seem to be, or everybody I interact with anyway.
Well, too much logic and too much analyzing and too much diagnosing and too much labeling is a disease in itself, I think. So we need to get back a little bit to a bit more common sense, and because otherwise we're falling victim of this general psychosis there that's happening at the moment in the health system. Anyway, the health systems are collapsing everywhere. Well, in Europe, I know that it's just I don't know how they can still manage to function. So we're going to see very interesting times, and you have to gather up an awful lot of your courage and common sense, and I think, and not follow the general. And I see this new thing that's coming there, this monkey whatever pox there, I think that they're trying to just slip a little bit in the news. It's triggering again this reaction in the public that was there when the COVID came. Quick, let's turn to the specialists, let's turn to the sorcerers, let's turn to the professors, and they're going to tell us what to do. And so the subject of health, fear of losing health is enormous, and it didn't exist a long time ago. And of course, nobody likes to be sick, nobody likes having pain, nobody likes to die, nobody likes to have an amputation. but the degree where it's become actually, for certain people, they talk about a right to health. I don't know if you've heard that expression. Like it's nearly like associated to human rights. We see what has happened when we try to send Western medicine to countries that in Africa or South America. We've seen the catastrophes that have happened. And would somebody have something to say about this?
Well, my brother and his family live, I'm from a big city in Asia, and I am just going to echo what you said about us not being able to take ourselves away from the environment. It's such a polluted city that my sister-in-law has asthma. The kids always have recurring respiratory problems. And I think, in a way, a lot of people are trapped because they have no means to move to the countryside or buy land somewhere less polluted. So we in the Western world, we are really, in a way, privileged because we can move if we have the resources to a place where it's not so polluted. But I just see that, yeah, I'm just kind of echoing that we cannot take ourselves from our environment. And at the same time, that a lot of people are trapped and have to live with unbearable conditions. And The funny thing is that when the pandemic was declared, at first they were very afraid, but after a while, the necessity of making a living just it's as if there was no pandemic anymore. They were just sitting next to each other, side by side, in the public transport. So, so I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling too.
It all comes back to the sort of spiritual, I suppose, aspect, and from the discussion about Uncle Ted at the beginning, where it was like, okay, well, no one seems to think that sending people bombs is a good idea, and that his approach to things was maybe not something that I don't know, doesn't seem all that contemporarily relevant, as in we've got past the point of anything happening, we can't do anything about the scenario that we're in, and so it's really about then back to that mental/spiritual preparation, or developing some sort of resilience in the face of all this, then, isn't it? Really, everything sort of cycles round back to that one thing. How do we individually make ourselves, or those of us who aren't already, make ourselves more resilient, I suppose, to being able to cope with the material circumstances and the mental circumstances. But it's all mental, isn't it, at the end of the day? But the things that are likely to arise maybe in the nearer future than a lot of people think.
Yeah, it's about catharsis, isn't it? Or more ataraxia, I would say. Ataraxia, and not acceptance, but ataraxia. We've gone too far.
We're too clever. Sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
No, we're too clever. We're too good at this. So, had we been lousy or a not that good species, everything would be okay, I think.
Yeah, I think I quite like the idea. Yeah, I've been I go through phases of wanting to do, like, take meditation seriously and try and sort of access this idea, and you know, I mean, Hugh used to talk about being awakened or whatever, and you know, it's a subject that comes up here and there. And then I go and listen to podcasts or something and read about people who've experienced various types of awakening, mostly in the context of like Eastern religions or philosophies, this idea of being awakened. And then the more I hear people talking about it, I think, oh, this just means like not giving a shit on a very profound level, like being able to so genuinely not give a shit that you wouldn't give a shit if the worst imaginable thing could happen. And then which I don't know whether that means that I completely missed the point, but is that some form of learning how to not give a shit might be a primary attribute of a good doomer, maybe? Do we need to, is that a big thing to focus on? I don't know.
Yeah. You see, I think we need to be in the present, and whether that's enlightenment or awakening, but the moment you are in the present time, you're not in the past and you're not in the future. You can be a good doomer then, even though you know certain things, but you come back to what you have. You come back to where you are. You ground yourself where you are in the present, and that's everything you have, really, isn't it? And that leads you to a form of ataraxia. I think that's what I experienced myself. It's the now. Yeah. I see a message there. Sophie, would you recommend doctors who practice functional medicine? What is functional medicine? I don't know what it is.
I linked to I guess an organization, and they seem to take a more holistic approach at looking at the cause of the disease rather than the symptoms. So I just thought you may have come across that.
I'll have a look at it, and I think I've heard about it by someone, and I'll send you an email or something. I've kept the link, and I'll read about it. I don't want to give you an advice on.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
no rush. Whenever.
Yeah. A Northern philosophy is that famous. Linkola. Linkola is very dark. Oh Jesus, Linkola, I don't like him. Linkola is just, oh God. But yeah, I know it's sunny. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's not dark. He's just to the point. I find.
Yeah, I don't know. I never liked him, but yeah, the people, and the Inuit and the Sami, as well as the people of Siberia, or the people from, the indigenous people will. It's more than a philosophy. It's a way of living, isn't it? It's just a way of living, and yeah, they have things to teach us, and their medicine too. Well, that was a little bit all over the place, but maybe we can revisit the subject another time, because I'd like to talk also about other things in medicine, but we'll see.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, we can continue this next week on the Eastern meeting. If there's no more questions or statements, and so let's just fall still. And as we would end it, Om Paramat Mane Nama Iti. All right. Thanks,
Thank you, Mike.
everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Thank you,
I'll
everyone.
look up the recording.